All right, so it sounds like we're taking a deep dive into the world of composing today.
Let's do it.
You've brought some cool stuff from RoleCatcher,
Yeah.
and it seems like you're really interested in writing music. And I'm curious right off the bat, because, when I think composer, I think like, someone hunched over a piano writing beautiful melodies.
Right.
But RoleCatcher seems to be saying that it's a lot more than that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, the first thing I noticed is just how much emphasis they put on the fact that composers aren't just writing for, like, concert halls.
Right.
They're writing for film. They're writing for video games.
Oh, wow.
They're writing for, all kinds of multimedia stuff.
So it's like a multimedia kind of...
Yeah, it's a much broader scope than I think people realize.
Okay, so it's not just like you're writing an album or, a symphony.
Right.
You could be writing like the background music for a video game.
Exactly. And that actually ties into another thing they talk about, which is this idea of variety of styles. So you're not just pigeonholed into one genre. You're not just a classical composer or a jazz composer.
Right.
You might be writing something that's orchestral one day and then something that's electronic the next day.
Oh, wow.
And a big part of that is because it's such a collaborative field.
Okay.
You're working with directors, you're working with producers,
What do you mean, musicians?
other musicians, exactly.
So you've really got to be able to adapt your sound to whatever the project needs.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that makes it both challenging and exciting,
Oh, yeah. I bet. I mean, I can only imagine trying to wrangle all those creative voices in one room could get a little interesting.
Yeah, you got to have some serious diplomacy skills, I think.
For sure. For sure. Now, one thing that caught my eye was how RoleCatcher talks about the variety, not just in the types of music, but also in the work environment itself.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like this is your typical 9-to-5 office job.
Not at all. One day you could be in a state-of-the-art recording studio, and the next day you're like huddled over your laptop in a hotel room trying to meet a deadline.
Wow. So it's like glamorous and then not so glamorous at the same time.
Exactly. And, they actually get into that a bit when they start talking about, like, the pros and cons of being a composer.
Oh, okay. So let's dive into that. What are some of the big perks they're pushing? And on the flip side, what are some of the realities that maybe don't make it onto the highlight reel?
Well, they definitely highlight the creative freedom. You're literally building worlds with sound.
That's true.
Which is pretty amazing when you think about it. And then there's the potential recognition.
Right, if your music blows up.
Exactly. Imagine hearing your score in a movie theater.
Oh my gosh, I think I would cry.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
It would be incredible. But, it's not all sunshine and roses.
Right, there's got to be a catch.
They're very upfront about how competitive the industry is. And the income can be all over the place. Yeah. Especially early on. You might be composing for like a cat food commercial 1 minute and then like a film festival the next.
Oh, wow. So you really got to hustle.
Oh, yeah.
So you're saying it's not just about being talented. You got to be like a business person too.
Kinda. Yeah. RoleCatcher actually makes a point of saying that self-promotion is a big part of it.
Oh, really?
So, you're not just holing up in your studio writing amazing music.
You got to get it out there.
You got to network. You got to get your name out there. It's a hustle.
Okay, so patch and thick skin, a good agent, all the essentials. But even with all that, I imagine you need some serious musical chops.
Oh, absolutely.
Does RoleCatcher get into what kind of training people usually have?
They do, although they tease it a little bit.
How so?
Well, they mention specializations. Like, you can
Yeah.
specialize within the field of composing,
Okay.
but they don't really tell you what those specializations are.
Oh, come on. Give us the good stuff, RoleCatcher.
Right. But they do list out a bunch of academic areas that are relevant.
Okay, like what?
So they mention music composition theory, education technology, film scoring, sound design, musicology even.
Wow, that's a pretty broad range.
Yeah, so it seems like a broad knowledge base is really important.
Makes sense. But then they hit us with this fine arts knowledge, and they give it an 83% relevance rating.
Yeah, that's huge.
83%, so it's not just about music theory.
No, it seems like they're saying you need a real understanding of art in general.
So I should be hitting up the museum and going to the theater more often.
It couldn't hurt.
Oh,
I think the point is that composing, especially for visual mediums like film or video games, is about creating an entire world.
oh yeah, for sure.
You're creating emotions, you're creating atmosphere.
You're a storyteller.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to do that effectively, you need to be able to draw inspiration from all kinds of art forms.
So like the more art I experience, the more tools I have in my composer toolbox.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, so we're not just musicians. We're curators of artistic experiences.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that actually leads into another thing RoleCatcher talks about, which is the importance of continuous learning.
Okay, so you're never really done learning as a composer.
Right. You've got to stay on top of industry trends, new
Hmm.
technologies, all of that,
Oh, yeah, for sure. Speaking of technology, I've dabbled in GarageBand a little.
of course.
But what about the pros? What are they using these days?
Well, they don't get into specifics here,
Yeah.
but they emphasize that you need to be comfortable with digital audio workstations,
Mm.
virtual instruments.
So you got to be tech savvy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because technology is constantly evolving and you got to evolve with it.
Okay, so you're constantly honing your craft, learning new things.
Yeah.
But let's say you've put in the work, you've got the skills, the network, the killer portfolio. What's the actual career ladder look like?
Well, RoleCatcher presents it as a pretty classic three-tiered system.
Okay.
You start as an assistant composer,
Right.
then you move up to junior composer,
Okay.
and then finally you reach the peak composer.
Makes sense. But what's the real difference between like a junior composer and a composer?
Well, it's partly about experience, of course,
Right.
but it's also about the level of responsibility and creative control.
Okay, I'm curious. Break it down for me.
So as an assistant composer, you're really there to learn the ropes.
Right. Paying your dues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're assisting with composing, maybe arranging music for different instruments, doing a lot of the grunt work,
Okay.
but it's a valuable learning experience.
For sure. So then you become a junior composer. What changes?
That's when you start to get more creative control. You might be given smaller projects to lead, or you'll collaborate more directly with the composer on larger projects.
So you're proving yourself.
Exactly. You're building your portfolio, and then if all goes well, you eventually reach that coveted composer level.
And that's when you're the boss.
Pretty much. You're leading the musical direction of a project. You're managing other composers and musicians. You have the final say on the score.
That's amazing. But I imagine getting to that point is no walk in the park.
Definitely not.
And speaking of challenges, does RoleCatcher give us any juicy insights into the interview process?
They do. They actually include a few sample interview questions.
Oh, really? Like
Right.
what?
Well, one that jumped out at me was, how do you handle constructive criticism or feedback on your work?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right. Because, let's be honest, nobody likes to be told their art isn't perfect.
Especially when you've poured your heart and soul into it.
Exactly. But it's
Right.
part of the job.
So what are they looking for in an answer to that question?
I think they want to see that you understand that feedback is essential to the creative process,
Okay, makes sense.
especially in a collaborative field like composing. It's about finding that balance between staying true to your vision and also being open to other perspectives.
Right, because sometimes another set of ears can hear something you don't.
Exactly. So
Oh,
you have to
yeah.
be able to take criticism gracefully and use it to make your work even stronger.
Okay, good to know. What other interview curveballs did RoleCatcher throw our way?
Well, this one was interesting. Can you tell us about a time you faced a difficult creative challenge and how you overcame it?
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, it's a sneaky way to get at your problem-solving skills without directly asking about music theory.
Because every composer hits a wall sometimes.
Right. And it's how you handle those moments that really matters.
So they want to hear about a time you turned a creative block into a breakthrough.
Exactly. Because that shows resilience, resourcefulness, all those good things.
It's like they say, what doesn't kill you makes you a better composer.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like those qualities are just as important as raw talent.
Well, that's reassuring. I'm not the only one who struggles sometimes.
Definitely not. We're all human.
Okay, so RoleCatcher has given us a lot to think about, even
Yeah.
if they are holding back on some of the juicy details.
Totally. I mean, I'm still curious about that CV resume builder and the AI-powered practice.
Right. It's like they're dangling the carrot.
Like, hey, we'll show you the good stuff if you sign up.
Classic marketing.
Yeah.
But hey, it worked on me. I'm intrigued.
Me too. But even just with these excerpts, I feel like we've gotten a pretty good overview of what it takes to make it as a composer.
Totally. We've covered the highs and lows, the skills you need, the whole 9 yards.
And don't forget the importance of finding your own voice,
That's right. Because at the end of the day, that's what sets you apart.
your unique perspective, your musical DNA.
Exactly. So to all you aspiring composers out there, remember, embrace the challenges, hone your craft, but never lose sight of what makes your music special.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of composing. For more explorations into the careers that inspire you, make sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive wherever you get your podcasts.